Especially at the beginning of your career, I believe that it's important to try different assignments, even different functions, sometimes even different companies, especially if you have big career ambitions. Then I think the more fit way is getting out of the pond and putting yourself in the ocean like Nemo. Hard work takes you to a certain place, but it's not enough. You need to build your own brand equity. So if I'm in a new company, new organization, new role, I'm quite comfortable to say, hey, I don't know anything about this company and this organization, but it's okay, I'll learn. I think now the world, or at least part of the world, is moving from the phrase work life balance to work life integration.
Hello, guys. Welcome to my podcast again. So, today my special guest is Melda, and the reason she's special is because she's one of my best friends. Now, but that is not the only reason why I have her here on my podcast. The reason I have her here is because we want to talk and learn from her with regards to her stellar career that she's had in with her across the globe. And how I know her is, or how we became friends, is when I was working with Procter& and Gamble in Middle East in Dubai. She was in my team. She was the marketing head for that team. Later, we parted ways. I moved to Canada, and from there onwards, she continued to have a rising star career for herself. She became the CEO for Kraft Heinz in Middle East, and was also applauded with the Forbes top regional CEOs award, which is just mind blowing. And I remember telling her that for me, the claim to fame is that I know someone who is on the Forbes list, or I'm friends with someone who's on the Forbes list. So I have her here to learn from her. But before, Melda, I jump into asking questions, it would be nice if you can introduce yourself, things that I've missed, and we can take it from there.
Thank you. Thanks, Bahruz, for the opportunity. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are. And thanks a lot for the kind words as well. I was blushing. uh, I mean, it was a pleasure working with you. I still miss those days. So who knows, maybe one day we can find the opportunity again. Um, just to add on to your introduction, Bahruz, I'm Turkish, born and raised in Turkey in a middle city. I studied engineering, not because of choice, but where I come from, and I think it's similar in most of the emerging countries. If you're a smart kid, good in math and science, you're supposed to go to either engineering school or medicine. And I wasn't good with blood, so I ended up being a chemical engineer. But then I soon realized that that's really not my passion. I like to work in teams more, being in touch with life, outside on the streets. I did my MBA and joined Gillette company at the time for the marketing function. After that, for the last 20 plus years, I don't want to be accurate here, so people couldn't calculate my age, but 20 plus years I've been in the consumer goods industry, mostly in big American companies. First 10 years I was based in Turkey, responsible for the Turkish market and some of the Eastern European countries. 2010 is when I moved to Dubai and I had the chance to meet and work with you. For 13 years, I was based in Dubai, and very recently, 3 months ago, with my family, I moved to Singapore, to further east. Um, Married, I have 2 kids, and we have a COVID puppy. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Marla. Thanks a lot. And again, I remember our time working together. It was amazing, and maybe one day again. So thanks for that. So let me get into the questions. Now, most of my audience on this channel are young folks entering their career. So let's take me as a young guy now who's getting into his career, starting his career, early 20s. What is the one advice, or one or two advice, or couple of advices that you have for me to have a stellar start with my career? And you would agree with me that equity is very important. So the early you build that equity of being the best guy, the better. So how do you go about building that equity earlier in your career?
Couple of things comes to my mind, Bahruz, and um, I'm not perfect in these at all. Some of these I realized a bit later in my career. I wish I had known earlier. Um, but if start, for me, the most important one is to stay curious, to be curious and to stay curious. I have seen that it makes wonders. It made wonders for me and for the people around. What I mean by staying curious is don't just stay doing the same thing again and again, because then your learning curve is really slow, and you're not enriching your experience, especially at the beginning of your career. I believe that it's important to try different assignments, even different functions, sometimes even different companies, because at the beginning, where you really have the energy, even the physical energy, it's when you can learn the most. And there, if you have the variety of experience, I believe that it will accelerate your career curve. So the first one would be being very curious throughout your career, but I guess even more so at the beginning of your career. The second one is kind of similar. I guess it's being bold and courageous. I can give you an example from myself where I wasn't bold enough. It's related to moving outside of my country. I only moved, to a foreign country for a regional assignment when I was 32 years old. I wish I could tell my younger self to do it much earlier, and I had the opportunity. I was 26. I was offered a role in Spain, but it felt, so scary, leaving my country, going to a place that I don't know, where I don't have a network, I don't have a family, and I couldn't take that step until years later. I wish I had done that earlier, so be a bit bolder and take risks at that time. I think that would have prepared, that regional experience would have prepared me for my career much earlier, but also on a private parts, like in the personal life, it could have broadened my horizon as a person at that age. So the second one is being courageous, and the third one is, and I think I'm being philosophical here. I don't know if you were expecting more, solid answers, but more, more on the higher level. The third one is, when you're in a situation, you really don't know at that time if it is good or bad. It takes time to realize if it was good or bad, and sometimes it takes much longer. So again, to give you a couple of examples from myself, I started my career in marketing in Gillette, and 3 years into my career, where I was already hoping to be the next CEO, the company told me that I should go to sales as a function. And sales means, you go on the field, you have cases in your trunk, you have to sell, you have to meet different people. And at that time, I mean, this is 20 years ago, in Turkey, as a young woman, it was not something easy to do. And I thought it was the worst thing that the company was doing. I thought they are ruining my career. Like, why are they doing this to me? And I hated it. Years later, I realized that was one of the best things that happened to me, because that became my point of difference versus all the other marketeers. I knew how to execute things on the field. I could speak the language of the trades. I benefited from this a lot, but it took me a couple of years to realize that that was really good. Very similarly, Procter & Gamble acquired the Gillette company, which I really loved. It was my first business, my first love. And when the acquisition happened, I thought, again, it was the worst thing that could happen. Later on, I realized that Procter & Gamble is one of the best branding schools, and there was no other school I could learn how to build an iconic brand. But again, it took me a couple of years. So I think my advice, my humble advice, is when you're in a situation, and if it feels really bad or you don't enjoy it, take a step back, breathe, and try to see what it means, for you in the next 5 years, in 10 years. I mean, I was reading a book where they were mentioning that the indigenous Americans, when they were making decisions at the time, they were thinking the impacts of those decisions for the seventh generation to come. I mean, I don't expect anyone to think about 7 generations, but I think we can, calm down and think what it means for the next 5 to 10 years and react accordingly. So, yeah, I think these are the three tips or advice that comes to my mind.
Cool. Thank you, Melda. I like one thing that you said, which is regarding the skill piece, how you were from marketing and you did the sales piece and hence ended up using it as your advantage. There is this concept by this fellow who does the Dilbert comics, Scott, and he talks about skill stacking, which is if you want to be unique, you need to add skills. Now, you are a marketing individual. There are many marketing individuals. But now, if you want to be unique, you are marketing and sales individual who knows marketing, who knows sales. Now, suddenly you are more unique. Imagine if you add on top e-commerce, let's say. So now you're marketing, you know e-commerce and your sales. And if you keep adding those skills, there comes a time when you become the only person in the entire world who is really unique with all those capabilities. So thanks for saying that, and I completely agree to that. Moving onwards, rather not moving onwards, I want to hold on to one thing which you talked regarding being bold and moving out. There is this also element, especially I had that element, and probably you may have had it as well or not. Leaving my own country, moving abroad, it was easy for me to compete when I was within my own people. And I would be able to speak the language my mother language, let's say. It would be easy for me to compete. And I also remember when I was moving to North America, there was this individual from PNG who told me they will eat you alive. And I said, what? He said their communication skills, like Americans, they're very confident the way they speak, their communication skills, they will just eat you alive. And what I'm alluding towards is that imposter syndrome as well, which
Mhm.
is I will not succeed. I rather just stay here in my cocoon, in my country, in my city, because here I'm the champ, right? If I go out, there will be bigger competition and I'll struggle surviving. Any thoughts on that? And especially because you made the move out of your comfort zone.
I think there is no right or wrong, right? It's a very personal choice. You want to be the big fish in a small pond. That's perfectly fine. Maybe that's the lifestyle you want to have. But I wasn't like that. And especially if you have big career ambitions, then I think the more fit way is getting out of the pond and putting yourself in the ocean like Nemo, and try to be maybe the fast one, the agile one. But this is really a personal choice, right? So I cannot say that this one is better. What I can say is I think this is the better way to have a global career. You have to get out of your comfort zone. I mean, I guess at this age, everyone knows that growth only comes when you get out of your comfort zone, and it hurts at the beginning. For me, and you touch base the imposter syndrome. Maybe I'll also talk about that. What is imposter syndrome? It's feeling like everyone is perfect and you are the only one struggling. It's feeling like, okay, although you have studied hard and you know it, feeling like, okay, maybe I'm not as good as the others, I'm not worthy of it. And that feeling is very easy to have when you're in a foreign environment, especially if the people are speaking really good English and their communication skills are much better. I mean, you see, after I don't know, 14, 15 years outside of Turkey, you can still understand that, I'm not a native speaker and it has never been an advantage for me, my language skills. Having said that, you find ways. For me, the first, the second, and the third thing is working harder. That's my recipe. So let's take language or communication as an example. Um, if I'm supposed to go into a meeting, with people who are native speakers or who have been in that industry for longer than me, so they know it all, I of course feel that I'm not as good as them. But what I do is I work maybe twice harder than they work. So I even, if it is a presentation, still to date, I write my presentation on a piece of paper and then I rehearse it. And I have heard you talking about it in one of your podcasts that writing actually improves the way we think. I definitely agree. The articulation becomes much better. You can go over it, you can perfect it. So I rehearse, I work harder. So work harder, work harder, work harder. That's how I get out of the imposter syndrome. But on top of those, I think there are other things as well. So for me, another thing that I do after 20 plus years in my career, I remind myself victories from before. Hey, I can do this. I have gone through this university entrance examination in Turkey and went to that school. I entered, Procter and Gamble. I did this, I did that. There was that project. So reminding myself about those small victories in the past gives me the courage that I can win the next one. And the third one is creating a network of people that will give you that courage. That network can be your family, can be your friends, or can be your colleagues, or maybe old bosses, mentors. There are people that I would call today, and if I'm starting a new post, a new project, and I know that they will tell me, "Hey, Melda, you're good. You can do this," and I need to hear that. So that network helps me as well. So to summarize, the first three is work harder. Then it's reminding yourself your skills, your victories, and then the network of people supporting you.
Cool. Thank you, Melda. And since you talked about network, I have a question around that. And let me set the ground, which is you would agree, and we've been taught this way as well, that while hard work is important, you also have to network, you have to have the right connections, be connected to the right people who will eventually take you up. Now, I am an introvert. I don't like connecting with people a lot, and I'm like, my hard work should speak for myself. Why do I have to do this extra job of setting up coffee connects with people and all that? So, if you can speak to merits of network a bit, I think you spoke a bit already, but just maybe more expanding on that. And how should I break that introvertness in me and try and go about building that network? And why I'm asking you is I'm sure many people come to you and want to network with you as well, given the kind of career you've had. How do you, or what is a common thread you see where you go like, okay, this was nice, this person came to me, this was nice, this was good, this was a good way? Again, any tips, any thoughts on that would be helpful.
Yes, I mean, first, I agree with you that hard work takes you to a certain place, but it's not enough. You need to build your own brand equity and you need the right exposure as well. And both for your brand equity and the exposure, you need to create that network. Unfortunately, I realized that quite late in my career, so I'm not good at this. And study shows that generally females are worse in networking than men. I think there are some social limitations or biases as well for women when we want to do that. But that's a complete different discussion. We can have it some other time. So why networking is helpful? I think just take a simple example. There's a, let's say you're in company A and there's a role opening up in Latin America and you're based in Singapore. And no one, I mean, you don't know that there's a job opening there, but you're actually fit for that role. And that could be a great promotion, but based in Singapore, you would never know about that role. If in a global meeting you had met with the marketing director of the Latin American team and she knows your capabilities, that she knows that you can be a fit, when she's considering internal candidates, your name will pop up. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? You'll be on the list for the people to be interviewed. It doesn't mean that you're going to get the role, but you'll have the opportunity to be considered. So that's as simple as that. Of course, we can build on it and talk about all the benefits, but that's one. And it's important, in my opinion, to network within your own organization, but also outside the organization. So it's twofold. So it's more effort. Um, the way I try to do, or the way I like people do it with me, is a customized approach. So if I get an email which feels like it's been sent to other 20 people, I mean, I tend to delete it because it doesn't feel special. I want to feel special because the person is marketing themselves. There needs to be something interesting for me. And what is interesting is if the person has done the homework and has found my passion points and is talking about my passion points to me, then I get interested. So for me, helping women in their professional life is a passion point. I come from a country where women are still underprivileged in the workplace, and I believe in the power of sisterhood. So I take, I do all I can to help the sisters. So if the person is touching that point, then I get interested. For you, I'm sure there is another topic that you're interested. So if the person is coming to you and saying, "Hey, I'm also interested. I'm reading this book. Do you want to discuss? Have you read it? I also, doing volunteering. Do you want to be part of this? Bring those type of things. Then I get interested. So my recommendation would be, I mean, I'm sure there are other 100 ways of doing it. Some people bond around drinks after work. Some go to parent-teacher meetings and meet other people. For me, what has worked is finding those passion points of people and building the conversation around that.
I like that. And I like the fact that you said network outside as well. Just jokingly, at times when people, our friends are leaving the company, let's say when you left the company, there's a sad part, but there's a happy part in me as well, which is I'm glad I'll have a network outside of the work where I am. So which is a good thing. And second piece is when you're reaching out to someone. This worked for me, by the way. When I was looking for jobs in Canada, I would try to reach out to people and see if there's a way I can relate to them. And for me, one way to relate to them was looking for a brown guy who recently moved to Canada, because I knew they would have the same experience, which is they recently moved to Canada, don't have a job, they looked for a job, found a job, and suddenly 3 years down the road, another brown guy comes in, and they can suddenly see themselves in me and were able to help. So I
Agree.
got good success rate with that approach. So finding some common ground, some relation versus just a copy paste message. So thank you for that. Now, Melda, moving forward, you mentioned about hard work, which I agree and I understand. Where does smart work start to come in for you? How do you define smart work for yourself? How have you taken advantage of smart work? What does it mean for you?
I first of all, I have to say that I think you're the expert in this. Uh, I had the privilege of working with you, and you work smart, my friend. I mean, when it, yeah, if I have to choose between hard and smart, I think you're a good example of smart work. Um, Look, the way I believe it, at the beginning you have to work hard, because when you're junior, when you don't know what you don't know, you have to put the effort across the board, because you don't know where to start from, and you might not be perfect in prioritizing and deciding which topic is more important for the company, or which project will impact the P&L of the brand or the company faster, in a better way. You will not have the guts to say the ROI of this project is most probably higher than the ROI, so let me work on this one. So my suggestion, if you're at the beginning of your career, or if you're new into a company or new into an assignment, at the beginning it's important to work hard so that you have a good understanding of the business overall. You build that sense, you build that gut first, and when you feel that gut is there, then I think the time to work smart starts. And what I understand from smart work, and I don't know if this is how you describe it yourself, is putting your efforts where it makes the difference, where you can make an impact. It might be, again, as I said, a certain project over the other. It might be a certain function than the other. Or sometimes it's even the meetings you can choose, right? There are so many meetings in global companies. You move from one to the other and you have to prepare one pagers and PowerPoints for all of those. But if you understand in which meeting the decision is really made, or in which meeting the stakeholders are important for your future career, then those are the meetings where you can put your 100%, 200%, and the others you can do, maybe okay to manage it. But I mean, at least maybe I'm a bit conservative here. I think at the beginning this is not possible. It comes with time.
Now, very well said. And I think even when you do smart work, you still need the hard work, which is you said it right. Let's say there are 10 things you have to do. You pick on one, which is the most important thing, which is the smart piece, that you will focus on that. And then you go all in with hard work on that priority. So you
Agree.
still have to do the hard work. You never can lose the hard work. It's just that you do the hard work smartly. Maybe that's a nice
Agree.
way to, or different way to put it. Um, Melda, one more question. Given you've changed a lot of roles and organizations, how do you come across confident, if you try to do that or not, when you're starting a new role, when you're in a new team? Let's say you're sitting in a meeting, you just started a new job, you have a certain title now, they hired you for a senior position, and you don't know much about the business. You're sitting there, people, and maybe there's some imposter syndrome element here again as well at play. But how do you come across someone as confident individual in the room? What do you do to make a mark in that scene or in that situation where you're not the expert, you just took over the role? What do you do?
I think this will also be a philosophical answer, and
I like
it's
that.
and it relates to my leadership style and how I enjoy to be led as well. And I think the answer is very different from one person to the other. And my style might not be the perfect. I'm not sure if I look the most confident person in the room or not, but what I believe, Bahur, is people can read into you. So pretending to me doesn't work. I cannot pretend, like it's not me. And what I'm seeing more and more with the with the younger generation, they prefer authentic leaders instead of having
Hmm.
bosses in the room that say, I know it all, I have all the answers, and you'll just follow what I say. I feel, and I want to believe, that the younger generation actually prefers to see leaders who has the experience, the wisdom, but also the humbleness to be able to say, I don't have all the answers in the room, but I can ask the right questions and I can lead you guys, to that answer. So that's more the style that I'm trying to take. So if I'm in a new company, new organization, new role, I'm quite comfortable to say, hey, I don't know anything about this company and this organization, but it's okay, I'll learn. What I know is I know how to spot the important points. I can see the challenges. If there is a problem, I can ask the right questions, the critical questions, and help you think together. That's where my value comes. That's my experience. That's my skill set that I can help. I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I'm a generalist. I don't know the details of R&D, procurement, X and Y. So there is no way one person knows it all across functions, across industries, right? So I'm quite open about it. Um, and I think I hope people like my confidence in saying that I don't know, but I'm ready to learn. So maybe it's not the answer you're looking for, because I'm not that person who comes into a room and who would say, yeah, okay guys, now I'm here and let's go. So yeah, that's me.
No, this is a good answer. And you know what I liked about your answer the most is when you mentioned the newer generation or the younger folks, they look for vulnerability. And I got this feedback as well, which was stop trying to look perfect. It is okay to show your vulnerability. And that's when I was like, it made me easy because I had to keep this facade of like I know everything. And suddenly when I got this feedback from some young individual, I was like, oh, I just don't need to pretend. It is okay because people are looking for me to be human as against me being someone who's very holy and very perfect. So I agree, and thanks for saying that. One last question I have, Melda, for you is around
Are we
work life.
finishing? I was just warming up.
No, no. You know what? I'll catch you again. So maybe we'll have to do one more, and it also depends on the kind of feedback and comments we get
Okay,
on
now
this
you're putting
podcast.
pressure on me. I will be looking for likes and comments. Don't do that.
Yeah. So, which is around work-life balance. The question is, given you have had dual career, you have kids as well. You've moved across, managing home, managing husband, managing kids, managing life, and then managing a stellar career. How were you able to manage this? What were the challenges? How did you work around them? And how have you perfected your life or work-life balance?
I think now the world, or at least part of the world, is moving from the phrase work life balance to work life integration. And I like the way it's explained, it's described there. It's not about, you're trying to put work on one side and life on the other and trying to balance. It's more like it's a continuum, and you try to find ways of them integrating and both of them working in parallel. That's what I try to do, because the balance, I think it's almost impossible, right? Because if there's a super important meeting, a budget review coming up next week, that week you forget your life. Work goes up and it's perfectly fine. Maybe you can find that balance if you look at 1 year period. There will be ups of work and then there will be ups of life, and on average you can get to the balance. But point in time, that is difficult. So I like to say, I like to explain it more as integration. In my mind, it's easier to visualize. That's on the conceptual part. On the the practical things that I do is, first of all, I mean, you need, if you have a partner, like in my case, your partner and you should have the same vision in life. I mean, it will sound a bit maybe corporate and weird, but I think each family should have a mission and what they want to achieve as a family. Because otherwise, if you have conflicting objectives and conflicting values, it won't work. So for all the young people who are still at the beginning of their career and maybe don't have a partner for life yet, I think that's the most important thing to do. If you want to have an ambitious global career, you need to find the right partner that would support you, that has the same objective, maybe, or at least, even if it's not the same objective, their objectives don't clash with yours. If the husband wants to settle in a farm in Australia and you want to go to the headquarters of a global company, that won't work, right? So I mean, in short, so it's starting with having this family objective, and then deciding what are the important KPIs and what you can compromise and what you cannot. I think for me, that's been an important driver, because then you can manage things, right? Then your husband might take some of the life responsibilities from you at times, and you can do it for him as well. And you find the work-life integration for the family, not for you as an individual, but it can be a combined responsibility. So I think it starts with that. The second one is related to it, is having the right support system. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's more difficult. I was lucky. I mean, I was based in Dubai, now in Singapore, where having help at home for kids is affordable. And definitely, we use that, and it helps me a lot because I can delegate most of the less value add things to a help. But if you don't have that mean, then it might be maybe a parent helping you, coming in and supporting, which is very common, I think, in the eastern part of the world. We're lucky, where family bonds are still very close, and we support each other. But again, so the second one is that creating support system. I think that helps. The third thing you mentioned is, I think that's smart work. It will still decrease the amount of work, right? Instead of working super hard on 10 projects, if you pick those three, it will help. I think these are the things that come to my mind, but also, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, if you don't work hard and if you don't put enough hours into it, there's a limit to where you can come in the corporate ladder, or even if as an entrepreneur, right? There's no free meal for anyone. So if there is this expectation in the current era, maybe in 10 years, 20 years, things will change. I mean, there is AI coming in, technology is there. COVID accelerated most of the change in the last couple of years. But with what we know today, in the today's world, I mean, yes, pretty much you have to work from 9 to 5 minimum if you want to have a good career and progress and learn. So yeah, I mean, there is no life where you go to work at 10 and leave at 3. Sorry to say that.
No, this is great, Melda, and great advice, great inputs, and I like the fact that you mentioned it's work-life integration versus balance. I think James Clear has this blog on the four burner theory, and he talks about that there are like four burners on a stove,
Hmm.
and if there is one which is more lit up, then there would be other which has to go down, which is again the choices you make. And it could be choices you make when, for instance, when you're fresh, when you're young, you're starting your career, you don't have a family, maybe you go all in. And as we talk, like in the first couple of years, there is no shortcut. You just work hard and you have all the time with you to work hard. But then you start creating balance as you start developing or creating a family and life. And then it also depends on key decisions you have to take, like you beautifully said about if there's a budget meeting, that day meeting takes priority, but then there is a kids activity. That day kid activity takes priority, and the work, maybe you just leave work early and it's not a 9 to 5, it was a 9 to 2 work for you. Anyways, Melda, this was amazing, amazing learning from you. And I'm sure all the listeners and the followers will get a lot of value from this as well. I
Absolutely.
have one last question, which is, if anyone wants to reach out to you, where can they find you? How can they reach out to you?
On LinkedIn, uh, this is my name, Melda Yasar, and I generally reply to the mails, but as I said, they need to be a bit interesting and original.
Cool. Thank you. So I'll leave the link to your LinkedIn page in the description of this video. And thanks for coming, and thanks for your time and valuable inputs.
My pleasure.
Cool. Thank you.